before I give you the last point of this process, I want to share with you my process. It was a very long one. I've told you a little bit that when I was saved at 11, for 30 years, I basically hung out in church, sat in church. I did things. I did the Bethmore Bible studies and did every day's homework. I did it. I would read my Bible, I would pray, and then I would stop and get busy with life. My husband started a company before my 16-year-old was born, and whenever he started it, I was begging him to get a real job. It was rough. We were eating hot dogs and off of his mom, and his mom cannot cook. So that's how rough it was. Like, we ate her food. She still can't cook. But anyway, I still love her. But during that time, once his company got going, all of his partners were buying new cars. It was during the time that foreclosures were going on, and they were buying $500,000 homes and for their 1.5 kids. And they were like, when are you guys going to buy cars? I mean, they really put pressure on us. When are you guys going to buy the nice house? And we're like, our house is fine, our cars are paid off. And so we finally decided we're going to look for the dream house. And we'd even looked at this one neighborhood for years, and even this one house we looked at. But as we started looking for homes, we have no idea, but our prayer became, if it's not meant to be, take it away. And house after house. It was just little things. It ended up not working out. And our kids actually was like, stop praying the prayer, we want a pool. I mean, they were like, come on, I mean, we can afford a house, just take it, you know. And we were like, no, it's not meant to be. Well, the house in the neighborhood came up on the market. And we put in a crazy, ridiculous offer, and the guy accepted it within like 2 hours. And we were like, woo, you know, we're moving. And so we packed up our entire house into our sunroom and our garage, and we're like, you know, this is it. And 3 days before closing, we got a call that the guy had $14 million worth of liens on the house. And they couldn't sell it. And so the bank called us and said, you know, we're going to foreclose it and we'll give it to you for the same price. And we said no. We said, he took it away and we're walking away. And it was really hard. Like, I had already moved in. But we were like, we were at peace with it. Kind of. No, we were. But we decided to just stop looking. So the best spring cleaning we ever had, I unpacked our house back into our house. We'd actually gotten rid of furniture. We had this huge sunroom. I was like, where is that? And I'm like, oh, we sold it. Like, I mean, it was crazy. But as I began to unpack all of our stuff, I don't even know when it was. Long before that, I had heard about Stephen Curtis Chapman and his girls he had adopted from China. And I ordered a packet from the agency that they'd adopted from, and I just filed it away. Didn't even know. I just was curious. So as I was unpacking, I found that packet came out. And I ripped it open and opened up the brochure and began to cry. And I called my husband. He came home. He began to cry. And we're like, we needed to adopt. And the exact amount, and adoption is not cheap, the exact amount, almost to the penny, for the adoption was in our bank for our down payment for our house. And so we signed the papers immediately. And as we signed them, we were like, you know, this is probably going to be a long process, but we were accepted like a month later on my birthday. And we knew it was about 18 months probably for everything to go through. We wanted a baby girl, 6 months old or younger. We had it all planned out, what her hair looked like, everything. It was like really precious. And we were on this adoption Yahoo group, and everyone was talking about these 2 little boys. And they're on the waiting children's list. And they say that they're perfectly healthy, which we found out later that was not true, but God has a way of working that out too. You can tell him you don't want a special needs child. I mean, I was getting the perfect child. My kids were perfectly healthy, and I did not want a special needs child. So we just didn't know for 2.5 years, fell in love with him, and then found out he has special needs, and we're like, okay. So it's amazing how he gives you sometimes what you don't think you can handle, and he just squeezes it in and surprises you. So anyway, we looked at their pictures several times, and we said, that's got to be them. Well, The strange thing is we had a women's retreat that I had put together, and we usually had about 100 women come. We accepted them in September. The women's retreat was in September. And I had a friend of mine flying in. It's actually my husband's ex-girlfriend from high school. She's a good friend of mine, and she's a women's speaker. And we like giving him a hard time. But she was going to fly in and speak at it. And I had booked her ticket. And we had 5 girls signed up. 2 had decided not to come. And no one else had signed up. And we were like, what is the deal? Well, this friend of mine that was a missionary at the time, which really gets on my nerves, she said, this has to do with your adoption. And I'm like, we had signed the papers like 2 months ago. No, it doesn't. She's like, yeah, it does. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. Well, the weekend that retreat was supposed to happen, and then our friend that we booked the ticket for some reason the secretary didn't know who booked it, and she canceled her ticket. So she never even had a ticket to fly in. She wasn't supposed to come. That weekend that we had to have medical records looked at for our boys, and our pediatrician was going out of town for a month, was the Thursday and Friday I would have been gone for the retreat. And everything fell into place. So, as we stood in Ethiopia, we actually stood there with another couple which just moved last week to Ethiopia as missionaries, young couple, with their 15-year-old street son that they brought home after the fact that we met on the street. And they adopted him, and now he's back. He actually just witnessed to 2 boys yesterday. They're back as missionaries. That wasn't their plan either. But as we stood on the street, or stood at this orphanage, we all just cried, and we said, what have we done with our lives? What are we doing? And so we came back, and we said, we'll do whatever you want. And some friends invited us to our ministry. And we walked in, there was, 120 people. The ministry started with 5 guys praying. And the very first meeting they had, they thought they'd have about 40, and they had 80. And it's never stopped. We actually have a second Freeway on Friday nights that runs about 120. We have Sunday school on Sunday. We bring them into church. And it's the only church I've ever seen that actually works with having homeless, drug addicts, and criminals mixed with business executives. And our church actually, Crossway, has grown from 600. We built a new building just because the church was laid out really funny. It didn't hold people well. They only planned on 1 service. They were running 3. And within a month, they went, in our new building, we went to 2 services, and we're running about 2,000. We went from 600 to 2,000 in about a year and a half. And most of those are new salvations. We just baptized just last month. It's been a couple months ago. We had 80 baptized. A week ago, we had 18. I mean, it's continuous. And people are coming because they're like, what are you doing? People a lot of times won't come to church. But I even had a friend and her son that would never walk into a church come to serve at our ministry. And after they served, they heard the message, and they both got saved. So it's been an outlet, and the next day they're like at church going, what are we doing here? Like they're so confused, like that's not their Sunday, but all of a sudden they're at church excited. So it's amazing to see what God has done with a ministry like that, and vehicles just given to us from churches, and a guy that volunteered to paint them, and the food ran by a grandma and her daughter doing potluck, and they're still making the food for 500 people. It just works. And the reason it works is because of prayer, not because of anything man's done. It literally works. So I think I've learned from that there's no excuse to not do something huge for Christ, because if Christ wants it, it will happen. And it will happen effortlessly. It's amazing what has taken place. Our Sunday school class is wild. I mean, we will bring anyone to church. All of our ushers at our church are all ex-criminals. The people that would steal money are now taking people's offering. And our pastor's like, I want them to feel important. We have a guy in a Snuggie that will be in the choir next to a business executive. I haven't ever seen churches work with homeless and other people. It never seems to work. And all of our people are learning from each other. We have normal people saying, I've learned more, and that includes us, in 2 to 3 years from ex-criminals and drug addicts in our whole Christian life. It's an amazing thing. It's amazing how it works. And I think about it, and people straight out of prison, I just went for prison ministry training just a few days ago. I'm like, me? Really? I didn't like all the stories I heard, but I'm going next weekend. And I can't wait to go in and love on these girls. We deal with these type of girls every week, and I know what they're going to be like. But once you do it a few times, you fall in love with them. As a friend of mine said, it's kind of like having a ball of yarn, and you pull on it just a little bit and say, if it's not meant to be, take the house away. Then it turns into adoption. Then it turns into this. Then it turns into homeless ministry. And then it turns into, you can't put it all back together. You're stuck. You're doing it, and every week you will say to your husband, what are we doing? I do. I'm like, what are we doing? But we love it. I'll tell you that what we think ministry should look like, and what we think our life should be, and what God sees as perfection is not what we see at all. I thought I knew for years what Christians look like and what he saw, and I was wrong. He sees something totally different. I see girls at the altar that I would call bottom dwellers. They literally have nowhere else to go. And they literally hit the altar knowing that they'll never get their children back, knowing that they've messed up their whole lives, and they look up and they see Jesus. And they are transformed. And it is amazing. As our pastor at Freeway says, he's like, the altar is a place of sacrifice. It's bloody. It's a place of death. And that is why altars all over America are completely empty. Because no one wants to be real. Everyone continues to be fake in their lives. But these people are done. And they look up and they completely give it up. We go in and take drugs from people out of their homes because they're like, I don't want to go back there. I mean, we throw away cell phones. They're done. A lot of them from 6 years old did drugs or have been used for pornography by fathers, on and on. Messed up stuff. They have no idea how to live life. But they want to know. We know how to live life and we don't do a thing. They come out, our biggest group of people that go on mission trips out of our church, not out of our ministry, are people from our ministry. 99% that go on our mission trips through our church of 2,000 people are people from our ministry. Because they get it. They have no money, and they sacrifice to go. And 99% of our church that have the ability to go, don't go. They totally get it. We have 4 guys now that are in Bible college that are ex-drug addicts. They have messed up our little Bible college. I mean, seriously, those guys don't even, the first time our pastor went, and he's already blessed with being able to preach, but he wants a degree. And little preacher kids' sons that are in Bible college that are just there to make a living. I mean, they are playing games. They're like, whose dad are you? And he's like, I'm a freshman. I mean, he's so excited, and they're like, whoa.